What up, what up, what up? I have finally beaten Resident Evil 7. Let's talk about it. For those of you who are familiar with the Resident Evil series, Resident Evil 7 is significantly different than Resident Evil 6, where Resident Evil 6 prioritized action and adventure and just more of a free-flowing game. Resident Evil 7 followed a much more strict storyline, much slower paced game, horror, angles, camera, lighting, all those things, and this became like a horror movie, right? It was strictly survival horror, and it presented something very different, but it executed it very well. In fact, the angle of horror and survival horror was executed so well that you got a well-rounded story at the very end. See, in the beginning of the game, you start off as a guy named Ethan. Ethan then goes to this house because he got a message from his girlfriend. He's looking for his girlfriend. He finds out something wrong with her. She's possessed by a demon or whatever the hell going on with her, right? She attacks him. He fights her off. All this kind of stuff happening. She's hanging with a family named the Bakers, and the Bakers are just as crazy as she is. Come to find out, the Bakers were the victim in all of this. They were the victim in everything, and even Ethan's girlfriend played a role in the Baker's demise. If you guys want to know how she did that, then you guys have to play the game. But it's from a structural standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint, from a mechanical standpoint, Resident Evil 7 checks all the boxes. There's no issues there. And even with the characters, they checked all the boxes. In fact, Jack, who is the father of the Baker's family, was hilarious. He had the funniest lines in the game. He kept the game entertaining. He didn't die, and you didn't get rid of him until the very, very end. You had to fight this dude about 3-4 times before you finally got rid of him. But he kept the game entertaining every time you played with him. Whether he was scaring you or making you laugh, you stayed entertained. Now that I think about it, right? There's not a lot of characters in this game. This game is probably only about 8 to maybe 10 characters deep, right, in terms of notoriety. Now, there's a couple of monsters, but there's not that many monsters, right? It's only about 3 or 4 of them. Then you have the Baker family, you have Ethan, you have Ethan's girlfriend. There's really not a lot of characters, but they showed you how you can do so much with so little in this. Resident Evil 7 does a great job at sticking to survival horror, but providing you some abilities to defend yourself. The RE7, you do an awesome job where you have guns, you have different knives and different things you can do, and certain characters have different weapons you can utilize as well. So they do that, but they also still make it a survival horror game. And it keeps the balance. It walks a fine line of survival horror with a bit of action where you can defend yourself, and that's a great thing about the game as well. My only complaint about RE7, I have one complaint, just one complaint, are puzzles. I don't like puzzles, bro. I don't like in-game puzzles. I know for Resident Evil they do it all the time, and it's always pissed me off. It's because I'm not good at them, and for some odd reason it's just not a strength of mine. It is what it is. Me and my homie Rich got into a big argument about it. Not a real argument, but a debate back and forth. And I stand where I stand and he stands where he stands. But the puzzles are probably the only thing that I have an issue with. Everything else about the game, from the pacing to the lighting, the graphics, the storyline, which is probably one of the best components to the game. What makes the storyline so great for RE7 is that you go from looking at the Baker family as these aggressive, evil, conniving, dangerous people to victims who opened their heart, and because they opened their heart to certain things, they became susceptible to certain things, and they became what you know them as in the beginning of the game. But as the game goes through, you learn more and more about the actual story and actually what's going on, and the Bakers do not look like the aggressors at all. There's also several Easter eggs in the game as well, where they reflect back to other Resident Evils and other Resident Evil characters, and I think that's super dope as well. And I believe there's actually 4 DLCs for this game. I think they're only about 1.5 hours to 2 hours long. But each of them gives you more insight to what happened with the Bakers, and one of them actually tells you kind of what's going to happen in the future, the direction Resident Evil 8 went into. So they're pretty useful. I haven't played them yet. I'm not sure if I will, but the DLCs have gotten nothing but positive reviews, and if they're anything like the game, I believe they're pretty good for you guys to play. So I think you should try it. Lastly, one of my favorite parts of the game is actually when you get to make a choice, because there is going to be a point in the game when you do get the cure, right? And while you get the cure, you have a choice to either heal your wife or cure the lady who's been helping you out throughout the game. There really is only one right answer in here, and I'm sure you guys can guess. It's curing your wife, because that's actually a part of the storyline, right? If you cure the other girl, the story just gets really wonky, and you ultimately, when you play the DLCs, will realize you were supposed to cure your wife. But when you cure, so I wanted to play devil's advocate, so I cared, the other girl, the one who helped me out throughout the game initially. No, dumb decision. So then I went back and then cured my wife like I was supposed to, because in the DLC you actually get to save the other girl as well. But then she'll call the main character and he's like, yeah, I told you I was sending help. So ultimately, ultimately that decision moment, right? After going through all of that nonsense in the house, fighting the family and doing this and doing that, now you have to make a decision, a big decision on who do you save, your wife or this girl who's been helping you since the start of the game, right? You have to make that. It's a real crucial decision you got to make, but it's really only one right answer. All in all, if you love survival horror games, if you love Resident Evil games, or just want a really good gaming experience with a real consistent story and great graphics, great feel and all that kind of stuff, Resident Evil 7 is the game for you. It does everything. It checks off all the boxes. It gives you enough action to keep you feeling like you can fight back, but it also still sticks to the survival horror theme and storyline very well. The only thing Capcom doesn't seem to get right is hair. Like Mia, Ethan's wife, her hair looks like a wet towel. Like I don't know what Capcom has with hair, but they struggle with hair a lot. I don't know what that is, but whatever. Great game, loved it. I think you guys should try it. It's only about an 8 to 9 hour campaign for a first time player. If you're doing it, if you already beat it and run back through it, you could probably do it in like 4 or 5 hours. There is also a version of this game after you complete it, of course. After you beat the storyline, you also unlock another level, right? And that other level, I believe, is called Madhouse. Madhouse is a totally different thing. Some of the monsters will appear at different places. Some of the enemies will appear at different times, and it gives you an entirely different gaming experience. Also, you have a limited amount of saves you can do, so you can't just go save all willy-nilly. You gotta be real careful and real smart on when you save and when you don't save. So what RE7 also does, like other Resident Evil games, it gives you a chance to have the same gaming experience while adding a little twist to it to make it feel fresh. Like I said, I believe this is a game that most people will enjoy and play. If you're not a fan of survival horror, then it's probably not for you, because the pacing is slower and you really have to go through and understand the story to really fall in love with the game. But I think it's for most players, so I would say go check it out. Let me know what you think. Post in the comments below if you did play the game and enjoy it. But I appreciate y'all checking out the review.